The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
All right. Yeah. So probably everyone's quite aware that we've had some interesting developments, as you gentlemen have noted this morning. There's now a quote unquote strategic crypto reserve. They didn't mention Monero as far as I'm aware, but we know they have it. I don't know. Maybe they've been.
We know that they don't sell it.
That's what they say. But yeah, I mean, they seem to be pretty interested in suppressing Monero. So I wouldn't be surprised if they seize Monero and then they sell Monero on the dark nets or whatever, or sell Monero where they can.
Part of this obviously is that there's going to be an audit, right, of all of the departments to figure out how much crypto or what crypto the government has. Now, obviously, we don't know how accurate that audit will be, whether or not there's dark departments that are holding on to Monero that aren't going to be reporting it. I'm sure there'll be all types of theories, but I will
state.
But I will say, if the end result of this audit and they're like they don't mention Monero, then there's like that'll just be hilarious. Then I'll be out there like screaming, why aren't they mentioning it? Which will be funny because we know for a fact that they've confiscated Monero. Jenna, I think her name is on X, put up a good tweet in response to my tweet where I was, basically taking a public poll. We could bring that up at some point in the news of how many Monero we think the government may have confiscated. And she was posting some news articles that were referencing the different dark markets that have been taken down. We should definitely bring this up in the news. Tux, I'll send you that tweet actually. And so when you look at that, there's, it was public knowledge. It was published that when these dark markets were taken down, or these different arrests that were made where crypto was mentioned, Monero was mentioned in some of them. So it can't be like they could, it's been mentioned that it's been confiscated. And I think she's saying at least like 15K Monero on the low end. From what I looked at it quickly, I could see it, if you look at these, historically where it's been mentioned that Monero's been confiscated, I could see it being like 30K, 50K Monero. So I don't know. I think that's significant, just significant in that now the government is saying that they're going to have a crypto strategic reserve. What's interesting is in their language, they're distinguishing the two. For the Bitcoin reserve, they're clearly stating they're not going to sell it. It's it's literally meant to be a digital Fort Knox. They're just going to hold on to the digital gold. And then for the strategic crypto reserve, they're not saying that they're not going to sell it. They're just going to use it strategically, right? So maybe they'll strategically use it to keep the price of Monero down. I don't know, but they are going to reserve implies it's going to be held for at least some time. They're not just going to auto dump it on the market whenever they confiscate Monero. They're going to make a strategic decision, and if me being the ultimate Monero maxi and thinking these things will all work out and are all ultimately good, I do think at some point strategically it's going to make sense for the U.S. government to hold on to their Monero. They're going to want to hold on to this digital cash that the world is adopting and using. But go ahead, Buddy. I just need to get my 2 cents out on that.
Yeah. So, if you stop and think for a second about about the Ross case, if you stop and think about all of the Fed boys that stole all of the Bitcoin, you wonder if maybe they're stealing Monero because it's easier for them to steal Monero. Okay, yeah. So, obviously that's a pretty obvious thing that you would think that the deeper state would use their Monero for, right? Like they're going to confiscate Monero. They're going to grab it from dark webs. They're going to take it from anywhere that they can, right? Because they can steal it. It's free. And we know that they've, like we talked about that GDPR publication. I can't remember which European country it was, but they published, it was very clear. Like they're like, hey, we should price attack Monero. We should try and get people to leave. And we know that they price attacked Monero. I personally think we have every reason to think that CZ himself is potentially wrapped up with these big finance bros and the government itself. He got a slap on the wrist the whole 3 or 4 months in golf course prison, because there's certain prisons that are pound me in the ass prisons. There's other ones that are that have a golf course, or at least a single hole that you can go play. I don't know which one Diddy and Sam Bankman are in, but it's probably not the worst federal prison ever. But yeah, so like, I mean, the whole point is that we know that they fractionally reserve Monero. MEXC is now doing it, which they're a bad exchange as well. Like, we kind of knew that from quite a while ago. They surprise KYC their customers, and they freeze funds, etc. And they're probably fractionally reserving Monero. So it's like, why wouldn't the government take that Monero? Why wouldn't they turn a blind eye to their agents taking that Monero and then selling it? Yeah, I mean, maybe not, right? There's probably still honest guys in there. We're speculating, but it would be interesting to see if we get, or how much Monero they claim that they have audited. They audited them themselves, and, we're going to get to see what they tell us. Personally, guys,
SBF and Diddy are in MDC Brooklyn, by the way.
Okay. Is that a luxury prison?
I don't think so. Not it's not what it looked like, but SBF obviously was able to call into Tucker Carlson's show live from some computer. So I don't know.
Yeah, they were able to make that happen. So Sam Bankman looks so healthy. So for those of you that don't know, Tucker Carlson had a podcast with Sam Bankman from his prison cell, live from New York. It's Sam Bankman from his cell, but he actually looks like healthy. It's amazing what not doing drugs will do for the radiance of your face.
Not doing
I don't know. Maybe it's just Diddy giving him some of the adrenochrome or something. Yeah. Anyways, supposedly he got kicked into solitary confinement for that little stunt. He's not supposed to be doing podcasts from prison. All right, but okay. So as long as we're on the strategic Bitcoin reserve topic, might as well talk about it now. Strategic crypto shitcoin reserve. Guys, they have held 200,000 Bitcoin since, for like how long? Like years and years. And we're like, oh my God, when are they going to sell it? It's going to crush the price, maybe. But now they're just going to call it something different. They're just going to call it the strategic crypto reserve. Okay, cool. Nothing has changed. Nothing, like, okay, formalities and the government, like that. So I'm obviously taking a starkly kind of different position from Doug here. I honestly don't see this as being a big deal, except for a negativism against price has potentially probably been removed, and there's going to be some kind of formal audit, allegedly. I wonder if it's going to be as forthcoming and formal as the alleged Epstein files release. I wonder about that. You got to wonder why they redact so much and why this is a national security issue. And you got to wonder why Trump isn't like talking about that more, but that's not really price related. Anyways, I don't trust them. I don't think anyone else should trust them. I think it's a huge mistake to trust them. And I don't think that we should be waving the victory flag here just yet. I think we need to be very careful and on guard about this kind of stuff. Maybe I have to begrudgingly take the win if they actually do have Monero and then they declare that Monero is going to be part of, that strategic reserve. That's a win, probably, to the extent that, maybe it encourages exchanges and encourages people, hey, Monero is okay. Don't worry. You're not a criminal. Then that could be good for adoption. But I also wonder how much that distracts from the real decentralized solutions that are being built out and that people don't use them. So I think this could be a mixed bag. I think we should all be extremely hesitant to trust the government when they do stuff like this, because all I've seen the news from the past 2 to 3 weeks is especially fake and gay bullshit that, like, it doesn't look real. Like it just has this mark of WWF. I mean, that stupid fight from last week, like whatever. It all just looks so fake. So just, it doesn't mean you have to believe the opposite. Just keep it in your mind. Like keep the counter possibilities in your mind that, hey, maybe there's a psychological effect trying to happen here. But anyways, yeah, so we'll go on with the price report here. Let's start with the Monero chart. We're basically hanging out exactly where we have been hanging out. We've been talking for quite some time that, we want to keep setting higher lows. This is great. We have continued to set higher lows. And the Monero price has held up quite well as crypto has been in a little bit of woe and angst for the past, let's just say 2 weeks. In fact, we're going to talk about this, but we're starting to get those warning signs about that macro crash we've been talking about. So yeah, we'll get to the macro soon. Maybe actually we'll just cover Monero, go to the macro, and then go to Bitcoin, because I really want you guys to have the broader conceptualization. I don't know about you, but I like to see the full picture, the larger context, and then drill down to the details. It's Monero talk, so we start with the Monero price, even though it's slightly backwards, but you know, that's fine. You'll just have to rearrange those chronologically in your mind. So you can see here, Monero versus Bitcoin, still doing quite well, still hanging out here at the upper standard deviation. With the kind of strength that we've seen this chart show, I would actually be a bit surprised at this moment if Monero didn't end up on the top side of these lines for a little bit of time. That doesn't mean that I think that it's just going to totally smash those towards the upside and then ride them to victory, you know, back to where we broke down from here. I guess that would be around 4. So on the right here, I was thinking of a better way to say this. You could say that this is the number of this is how many thousand Monero that you can get 1 Bitcoin for on the right hand side. So at the current moment, it takes 2,540 Monero to get 1 Bitcoin. That's how you can think of this scale here on the right. I know it's weird. I just don't like 0.00 whatever, 0.000 on the right hand side. So anyways, yeah, the point is that I do think that we are going to be somewhat bounded by this upper standard deviation, but I do think that we're probably going to make it into this area first before any like major reversal happens there. But we are getting close to what looks like at least a temporary reversal. Like there needs to be some consolidation in the neighborhood of where we're at, maybe a little bit just above where we're at, before you could hope that XMR might go higher against Bitcoin. I personally, have I've foregone all hope, just like Dante told us to do. So yeah, anyways, I think that Monero overall still looking good in the price. If we have a macro crash, guys, all bets are off. Monero's going to crash with the rest of the coins. But where are we going to crash to? I would say in a macro crash that the 130 level is a really, really solid point to try and pick up some Monero. Maybe we truly have like a complete, the bottom just falls out. Maybe things could fall lower. Personally, if you pick Monero up at 130 right now, you're doing really good. Yeah. You might have to hold on to it for a little bit of time if it really decides to wick down. But it's such a solid point to do it. It's hard to think we could get back to 100. If we do get back to 100, guys, fucking sell your house, sell everything, leverage your kidney, and buy more Monero, because 100 is such like an obvious, easy place to pick up Monero and then know that you're going to have gains into the future. The only way that you wouldn't have gains is if like the Fed just refuses to intervene and we have like true deflation strike the economy for, a period of months and maybe years, but that's probably not going to happen. They've said they're never going to let that happen again. If they do let that happen, it's intentional. It's because they actually want to like just crash and destroy and burn everything. But that doesn't really serve them, I don't think. So they'll just reinflate. So anyways, if you see Monero at 130, smash the buy. If you see it at $100, leverage your kidneys. Put your children up as collateral for a loan. Yep. No, just kidding. Or maybe not. Am I? Anyways, so let's talk about the macro now. Here's the big thing that I wanted to point out. We've talked about this for a long time. Let me clear the wave magic so that this chart becomes a little bit more not retarded. So what we're looking at here is the price of oil. And, do we really start the macro with the price of oil? Well, today we do, because this is the lead signal that I've been looking for. We're actually going to cover this in a little bit more depth today than we normally do so that you can see why I'm thinking what I'm thinking. You'll notice we had 3 days now closed below what I consider to be a pretty important line. We have never closed an actual day on oil below about this level, at least for like the past, God, how far do we have to go back here? How many years do we have to go back? Like 2, 3, 4, like 3 to 4 years. We haven't closed this low on oil on the daily for 3 to 4 years. You'll notice that these were kind of like the most, recent closes. And there was a few of them just below that. But the point is, we've closed 1, 2, 3, 2 days below. All of the other days that this happened, you can see it was just like down and up, right? Down and up, down and up. This was down, hang out down there, wick down to the low side, and then come up. If we go to the weekly, it doesn't look nearly quite as dire. I mean, it still looks pretty dire if you know what you're looking at, but it doesn't look great. But yeah, you can see that the weekly did close right at the bottom here of where these other weeks are. Again, it's this same pattern where I've been telling you guys, we've been talking about this since last year, where it's like this pattern right here is like it's ready to break down. This pattern is, hey, I'm trying to hang on. Oh wait, look, we're not going to break. Oh no, actually we are going to break down. Like this pattern is just bullshit. This is being propped up to the greatest extent that it can be. Whatever powers behind the curtain, whatever, they're trying to keep this thing from breaking down because this is a very, very it's probably fundamentally interrelated. Like it breaking down is probably like kind of a snowball, like a contributing factor to further breakdown. I don't have the theory on that like fully formed. It's more of an intuition than anything. All right, but I want to come back. I want to take a step back here, and I want to tell you why that I think this is such an important thing for us to be looking at. It's the when the economy caught a cold in 2020. This is what happened. So it's this part right here, circled in yellow, that I'm mostly concerned about. So let's start with where the major crash happened. The major crash happened on this candle, so March 2nd, 2020. That's where the crash began in earnest. Everyone realized like shit was going down. But what you'll notice is that oil broke down out of its trend well before that. So let's just draw some lines. Like here is a good way to draw that trend. Perhaps maybe you could draw it like that, or you could draw it if you wanted to. You could draw it like this. Doesn't really matter, right? In general, what you're looking at is, okay, here's the trend. We could even drop a horizontal line here as well. I changed to LibreWolf, and for whatever reason, I don't have my quick keys anymore, so I've got to be retarded and do it slow, but okay, whatever. There we go. There's a horizontal line. So you'll notice, right, that effectively the last time we had a macro crash, it was preceded by, first of all, oil dropping out of its trend a little bit early, and then continuing to crash down below the major trend. And so the point is that I have been watching this as a potential, watching oil drop out of its trend as a potential corroborating sign and perhaps an early warning sign. And that's what we're looking at, right? So if we're looking at, we could look at this line right here, right? We could look at this line right here. There's a few ways of drawing the pleb lines. Again, that's why you have to be careful about drawing stupid lines. You didn't draw one line and you have, the scroll that leads to the truth of the markets. You have a line that might be useful, or it might be invalidated if you switch to a different time frame. The point is that oil is now dropping out of trend, and we've talked about forever that this is yellow, right? This is flashing yellow, and this shit on here is flashing red. If you see oil closing multiple days into this level right here, it is time for you to sell your more dubious shitcoin positions. Absolutely do not take along. And if you are so inclined, open some shorts. I wouldn't say open shorts with a huge percentage of your stack. I would say open shorts with a small percentage of your stack. But it is that would be a terrible sign for the macro crash for the markets. I personally want a macro crash. I've got, a nice chunk of cash sitting, waiting, ready to pounce on these markets. If and when that happens, I will probably even take a short. So yeah, that's what's going on with oil there. Just know that it's a problem. We also have some corroboration when we look at the dollar index. Let's again clear the wave magic here. Also, wave magic, all bets are off on wave magic when you start to enter these kind of like tail risk macro crash conditions. You get levels broken. Oftentimes you end up at these really huge headliner levels and you'll tag them. That's what happened with Bitcoin. Actually, we tagged the lower standard deviation cluster in the last macro crash on March 2020. And it was beautiful. Some might even say that it was fantastic. We smashed that line, and then that was the buy point. So yeah, okay, we're looking at the dollar index here. We have similar action now happening in the dollar index as happened with the last macro crash. So it's dollar down, everything down. So stocks down, gold down, dollar down, everything down, and then the dollar pumps. And so right now we're actually seeing a pretty big fall off in the dollar index, and I will show you that. I will prove it to you. Let's go to the weekly. So you can see it again on the weekly. That's quite a big candle, right? We haven't seen that large of a weekly down candle in the dollar index since right about here, right? Since the end of the bear market at the end of 2022. So let's go backwards a little bit and take a look at what happened during the great cold of 2020. So you can see here, look at the bottom. That's 2020, 02, 24, right? So February 24th. And you'll notice what happened in the lead up to the crash. And on the first major crash, right, on 302, the week of 302, you're seeing big moves down in the dollar index. You even see in the next week a continued down movement in the dollar index with this wick, right, and then it recovers once everyone realizes that the intervention is going to happen. But the other part of that too is that the dollar is the least ugly belle of the ball when it comes to macro crashes. Everybody across the world is like, the dollar is the safest. They know that the printing is going to be excessive, and that the dollar is going to be slightly less excessive than the other fiat currencies. So people go to the dollar. I thought that I had the S&P on here, but let's put the S&P onto a new price scale. Let's take a look at what the S&P does. Crap. Let's change. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's TradingView. Sorry about the delay here. Okay, there we go. S&P is in the bars now, so that makes it a little bit easier for you to sort of visualize what's happening here. So again, S&P starts dropping, right? Here's its high. Here's its like complete, like ultimate high. The S&P crashes, and then it crashes again while the dollar index is also crashing, which is like really, like, they're not perfectly correlated. They're not perfectly anti-correlated. You definitely get correlation, and it happens over long periods of time. But it's not common, right, to think, oh, the dollar index is crashing and the S&P is crashing and gold is crashing and everything's crashing, right? That's not typical. So if we continue to see this, right now we're like, I'm like, hey, this is like really bad news. This looks bad. We're flashing yellow right here. I think there's a good chance that by the end of the next week, so by the time we're on the horn again next Saturday, we should have better resolution into whether or not this is actually the macro crash. But this is the moment for you guys to take notice. We've talked about this a lot. This is now like, okay, that I'm telling you, like, don't sleep on this, right? If you were so inclined to try and take advantage of these kinds of things and or try and protect your stack from these kinds of things, do not sleep on this. This is the time to really be wide-eyed and paying attention. Whereas before, we've been talking about it a lot, but I've been saying, hey, we're not quite there. It's not incipient. This looks like the beginning of this really looks like the beginning of a macro crash. We can't say for sure. It's not confirmed. I'm hoping next week we'll get the confirmation. So I know that's a bit repetitive, but I just want you guys to really, really understand that, hey, this actually needs to be looked at, and you actually need to watch it closely. Another
ding,
thing
ding,
we'll be
ding,
looking
it's happening. Sound the alarms.
Yeah, it's like Ron Paul. It's happening, but in a bad way. Okay, so here's the reverse repos. We've also talked about reverse repos. How much money do they have to smash into risk? How much higher could things go? I'm having problems seeing where the liquidity is going to come from to take us to, to take Bitcoin to 150K, 200K. Where's that liquidity going to come from? And that as reverse repos rise, that's money coming out of risk assets, so out of stocks, out of crypto, out of like all the high yielding, high risk, high return kind of stuff, and going into safety, right? They're putting it with the Federal Reserve, trusting the Federal Reserve, trusting JPAL. Now, one thing we have not seen in the reverse repo markets is spike, drop, but not all the way drop back down, and then more spike, right? If we see this happening into next week, that is also another bad sign. And I mean, I'm kind of hoping, because I've been waiting for the stupid macro crash, right? I said, hey, maybe December. That was kind of politically motivated. And I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. But now, my call has basically been for late March for this thing to happen, since the miss in December. And I don't know, I just kind of want it to happen because that's opportunity, right? I mean, I shouldn't want people to lose their jobs and all the bad stuff that happens with it. But, I guess I'm selfish or something. Anyways, point is, if reverse repo starts doing this next week, that would look like the first time that we've ever seen a sustained up move in the reverse repos, like really since the top of the bull market, or sorry, the beginning of the bear market. No, wait, Jesus Christ, why can't I speak? Since the beginning of the bull market, when reverse repos peaked at above 2 trillion and then started moving down, right? So after this last sustained move that happened right there, reverse repos basically just down, with like spikes that would immediately come back to the downside, spike, downside. So again, the point is that we're trying to draw like multiple signals. We're trying to corroborate one against the other. We're trying to paint a coherent picture. I don't want to rely on just one signal. I don't want to just rely on one set of astrology tea leaves. I want to rely on a whole bunch of different astrology interpretations. So the point is that if we see reverse repos going into an uptrend next week, that is another corroborating signal that we will match against the dollar index and you as well. So all of this, very, very important, guys, for those of you that really are interested in leveraging the opportunity of a macro crash to either wait and then buy low, or to take a short and then close those shorts. Okay, so we've got gold here. Gold has actually been performing quite strong, like relatively strong, considering how much everything else has had problems. Effectively, gold closing only 1.3% down from its all-time high. I guess we could take a look at the weekly and see where the weekly's closing. Yeah, I mean, this still looks like a very strong chart, but don't get me wrong, macro crash sends gold down too. But it doesn't drop as far and it recovers faster. So if you got your gold and you anticipate a macro crash, yeah, I suppose you could try and sell it and then get back into it. That's really hard with physical. You incur a lot of friction, and I think that friction is planned. I don't think that there's any accidents about that. I mean, obviously, yes, it's a lot of like there's a free market at work, and you have the spread, right? You have the gold spread on bullion when you buy and sell physical. So like if you're holding physical, now is not the time to try and sell it. Probably you're going to want to wait till they do the macro expansion, right? Till they expand, they do the intervention and liquidity expansion again. Then gold will pump to some high, some great glorious height, and that would be the time hypothetically to sell your physical gold for something like maybe property, right? Or an airplane. I don't know if anyone sells airplanes for gold. I'm praying, hoping that would be pretty cool. Anyways, so yeah, gold's doing surprisingly good despite the general environment of malaise. We can kind of like corroborate this again with the S&P 500. You can see we've taken a bit of a tumble. It's been a rough and tumble here for the S&P, down 7%. That's not, like, historically speaking, in the recent history, that's not terrible. Like the S&P has dropped 9% there, or really 9.5%, 6% there, right, in the past like year or so. So that's not terrible. Let's go to the weekly, but because I want to show you guys, the S&P is now in danger of sort of losing this channel. It's trying to hang on, right? It's like closed at that low. And again, like these lines, you have to give them some slop. This is not a hard line in the sand. This is a reference point for your eyeballs. But the more that this drops out of trend, the more that you become concerned. This was kind of a funny little deal right here, but I think that was I don't remember what that was. That's the end of 2023. Was there any kind of scare? I can't remember what happened there. It wasn't the bankruptcies of the banks, or the few banks. Anyways, whatever. The point is that this trend is looking dubious now at this moment. It either needs to hold and make a big comeback, or it's going to probably break down. And the macro crash thesis, let's just say I'm like 60-40 now that we've entered the crosshairs, that this shit's about to go down. So I'm 60% probably macro crash, 40% maybe not. And hopefully by next week I'll have better like personal, swag probabilities. That's a scientific wild ass guess for those that don't know what swag means. Same thing with the NASDAQ. It has also actually broken down from its trend. You can see like a much more clear breakdown. Again, one candle closing below isn't full breakdown. That can be fake out territory. It's happened before. If we see next week closing, especially if it closes even lower, like that's a pretty clear sign that something is awry. All right, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense for you guys. Hopefully that's a decent enough macro picture. I know I talk fast and I know we cover it quickly. There's just a lot to cover. And I don't want to sit here being, lollygagging for a freaking hour on the price report. But there's a lot of stuff that's important for you guys to keep in context, and for you guys to watch on your own time if you are so inclined to do so, and try and trade what's going on there. Personally, I actually don't like trend trading. I don't like, I don't typically like to, I don't know. I just don't like to trade on the shorter time frames. I really like to take advantage when there's massive opportunity and then chill like for the next year, 2 years, right? I very much appreciate making a big score in a single moment and then just chilling, as opposed to having to work for my meal every day. So, but that also, like, to do that requires you to have a decent amount of deployable capital, right? So if you're working with 10,000 or 50,000 in savings, of deployable, or of total net worth, savings, investment, whatever, that's a little bit harder to do, than if you're working in 6 figures plus, where you can move some big money around, you can find the moments of max opportunity and then make moves there, and be a little bit more patient. Maybe you have a good paying job, right? Maybe you're making 6 figures a year, just on your regular day job or whatever. In which case you can also probably be afforded that opportunity. Anyways, that's just some things to think about. And that's why it's like, you can't give good advice for everybody, because everybody's at a different position. So a lot of times you'll see me kind of like, well, you could do this, you could do that, right? I'm just giving you ideas. You're going to have to talk to your own financial advisor, who is obviously me. Obviously that's me. Anyways, just kidding. So let's go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been having trouble, and we could talk about this in light of the strategic reserves that it's happening. Yeah, it's happening. All right. But like, this shouldn't be happening. It should be up here, guys. Bitcoin, this has been like the heralded event that everybody, right? This is almost like adding Bitcoin to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange in 2017, December 17th, 2017, Bitcoin added to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And that was literally the day of the top. Or April 14th, 2021, Brian Armstrong lists coin on the NASDAQ, and it's happening, right? Where the integration, finally, it's here, the acceptance, the institutional, the governments. And that was literally the exact fucking day of the top. And what's happened here? It's something not quite exactly the day of the top, but it finally got announced. The government said they're doing it, right? They're not actually buying any Bitcoin. Like, that's the other point here, guys. They're not buying Bitcoin. They haven't committed to buy anything, to buy shit coins, to buy nothing. They haven't committed to do shit other than to say, oh, we're just not going to sell the assets that we stole from people like Ross. Okay. So now they're just like kind of like declaring the legal thing that they can hang on to the coin. I mean, okay, in like the broader psychology, crypto is accepted. Crypto is already fucking accepted. They already accepted on the NASDAQ. There's already the ETFs for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. And then I think Litecoin got their ETF. Like, it's just, so this is like, it's more like a headliner news thing, but where's the price? You know, like, show me the money. There's no buys happening from the federal government. If anything, they're just more encouraged to steal even more so that they can just add it to their reserve. But the point is, the more important point, despite my exasperation, let's pull it back some, is that this spike right here was the announcement of the strategic reserve, and then it came immediately back to the downside and didn't get followed up with any strength. That's horrible price action, guys. That's fucking terrible. This is not the kind of price action you want to see. What should have happened, quote unquote, would have been like a recovery into this area and then breaking of that and then consolidation, you know, and then up here. Nothing like that has happened. Now, maybe anything could happen with the markets, right? Maybe they could just be jacking the shit around and eventually, you know, they're washing out the shorts right now. Could that be the case? It's possible. It's possible that could be the case. I'm not totally sure that in fact is the case. In fact, in light of the macro crash kind of metrics that we've been looking at, this looks like the final sort of like a good amount of liquidity entering the markets for all the people saying, oh my God, it's here. We're doing it. Like, the government is doing it. We're winning. We got the Trump. We got the fantastic things going on. And then yet the market is dumping. It looks so much like a liquidity dump, so much like a, what do they call it? Exit. I'm not, help me out, Tux. What's it called? Exit liquidity, I think. Yeah. That's this is their exit liquidity at the top, right? So, and we know that Trump loves to launch shitcoins and like play that game, which, okay, whatever. I don't care. Meme coins are probably more honest in a lot of cases than a lot of other coins because they don't claim to be anything more than funny, funny dog or whatever. But nonetheless, like, we know that Trump doesn't have any kind of aversion, right, to playing in that game. And certainly the people around him have no aversion to that either. So in the more the more specific sense of TA, what we're looking at here are these standard deviation bands. And these are somewhat short-term bands. So let's zoom out a little bit. You can see that we're going all the way back to 2024. Okay, so this was the breakout that happened. We finally got above the all-time highs right around November 4th last year as Trump got elected, and everyone knew that this was the Bitcoin president, or now it's the shitcoin president. That's fine too. But what the point is that here you're looking at these upper standard deviation blue bands. Okay. Typically, the way that I see this stuff play out is you have this bullish momentum, you have this bullish trend, and these upper standard deviation bands are supposed to act in a bullish environment, are supposed to act as support. You should maybe come down and touch these bands a little bit. Hopefully you can see them. I tried to lighten everything on my chart, make them brighter. So I think you guys can see this better. But the point is that this should be a clear support, and you shouldn't just be wallowing down here at this support. It should be like wick down and then come back up, right? Right now, like, it's already broken down. Like, it's already broken down below these bands, and now it looks like it's even going to break down further. And this is really, really common. I see this when things turn bearish. You break down from the bands, you act like you're going to recover them, but then you come back down here and then you break down further. And at this point, you basically would have to expect to touch these lower guys down here. So, am I calling for Bitcoin 65,000, 60,000? Yeah, probably. Just on the basis of the TA, yes, that's what this chart would show. That doesn't mean it necessarily has to play out, right? We're not talking like, I'm not like, this isn't my God, this isn't my astrology God here. I'm just telling you what the TA says in this perspective. And if you look at it in terms of a macro crash and that possibility, well, that certainly makes that even more likely. Let's go to the regression analysis just to get a quick look at that so you can see where your absolute maximum opportunity would hypothetically be. We'll take a look at this on the weekly so that it's easier for you to see it. Probably most of you guys are familiar with this chart. If you're not, well, it's because you're not paying attention to crypto. which is okay. That's maybe you shouldn't. Okay, so this is obviously the 2017 high. This is the 2017 low, and then this right here was the that whole thing that happened in 20. Oh, I didn't mean to draw a penis on the screen. Sorry. Happened in 2020 when the economy caught a cold. And so we wicked down, right? We wicked down. We had, let's do a measurement here. I think we've done this like in the past week or so, but we'll do it again. That's 60% down. Bitcoin dropped, crashed by 60% in the last macro crash. And this green line is actually defined on this wick, right? It's partially defined on this point down here. I know you would think, hey, why wouldn't you define the lower boundary of the regression on the basis of the actual bear market low? And the reason is because this wick down here was actually more divergent from the model than the low was down here, because it happened so much further in time. The point of showing you guys that is that, yes, it is possible in a macro crash for Bitcoin to wick down to this green line. And I know that seems crazy. It would put us, hypothetically, if it happens soon, like let's just say beginning of April, that would be minus 66% from the top, very similar to what the last one was. And that would be at about 37,000, right? That would be definitely panic and blood in the streets, no doubt. I'm not saying that it definitely will happen. I was kind of expecting that we would touch this green line down here, and we missed it by 10%. So maybe this green line is off by 10%, right? Maybe it's actually 10% higher becomes the macro crash low, in which case would put us closer to 40,000. But that's still pretty, that's still pretty blood in the streets territory. So if I'm trading this, and it probably will be, your first opportunity to maybe think about a long would probably be this area, right? So you're looking at the previous wick highs or weekly close highs, right? So you're looking somewhere around this area, which would be about 70,000, right? That's your first kind of like obvious headliner spot to take a long, maybe get some bounce there hypothetically. But then if we're truly in a macro crash, it's not going to stop there, guys. It's going to go much lower than that. So just know that. Just know that a lot of bets have started to become very dubious in this past week or so. So back to the wave magic, we would say in a wave magic sense, you would be looking at these blue lines right here. These are kind of like obvious levels. I like that the moving average clusters, the very longest term moving average clusters, are sort of coincident with where the regression analysis would put the lower boundary. So right here, right about 40,000. So again, just thoughts, things for you guys to consider if you're looking for places to pick up. Again, if we hit this green line, and I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy for us to hit 40,000, but if we touch this green line, that again is leverage your children, right? Again, sell your kidney, etc. Put it on loan. To buy, could be Bitcoin, whatever you want to buy, right? Same deal as we talked about with Monero. $100 is the place to do that. So yeah, that's what we're looking at for macro crash eyeball levels. Let's take a look at some more relatively happier things. Let's go back to comparing XMR to other stuff, because what doesn't make you feel good when you're doing good to compare yourself to other shitcoins? We can see that Litecoin has lost its luster. Litecoin here in blue was trying to be cool, hang out with Monero, and then it kind of fell down. I wonder if that has anything to do with the significant amounts held by certain parties that launched this coin and got it listed onto Coinbase and used wash trading bots to make it seem like people were adopting it. Whatever. Litecoin fell back down out of it. Monero is now currently in the Z-score realm, doing better than all of the other coins. Not surprising. Monero does good when markets are flat, slightly neutral, down, slightly up. When things are steady state, Monero tends to do better. Monero is outshined when leverage is smashed and pumped into the markets, and they're just putting all the shitcoins high, including the daddy shitcoin, not Andrew Tate's shitcoin, but the big Bitcoin himself. Yeah, because all of the leverage gets pumped into these shitcoins, and everyone's like, oh, shitcoins, they always outperform. So the market also helps to make that a reality. Like, it's kind of funny how the people behind the liquidity are able to sort of synthesize realities in the market by making them pronounced enough that the plebs all like, oh, hey, that's just what happens in markets. And hey, what can I say, guys? I do the same shit. I believe it too. And well, that's just how it works, right? It's not my fault. That's how it works. Okay, that's what every scammer says. Okay, to the Bitcoin dominance, it's still just sitting here. It's kind of chilling flat. I would have to expect that we're going to get some stupid wick at some point here, especially if there's a macro crash. Bitcoin is going to outperform. There's going to be a ridiculously retarded wick up there. That'll probably mark, if you see it, if you see this huge wick and then back down, that'll basically mark the end of this trend, the end of this run. And then especially if you get the liquidity expansion, as I just mentioned, it's going into shitcoins, right? It's going into I won't mention any particular shitcoins, but you know which ones. You know which ones I'm talking about. Basically all of them. It's the same thing that happened here, right? Bitcoin set the new all-time high. You got these wicks. Bitcoin maximalists are like fapping about how they are going to go to 90% and then destroy and crush forevermore all altcoins because only one coin can ever win. And if that happens again, then that's a good opportunity to flip everything into altcoins and just forget about Bitcoin for the rest of the bull cycle. But for now, Bitcoin's still doing quite good. Where's alt season, bro? It hasn't happened. We are, I said, a couple weeks ago, it should be happening now. If it's going to happen, it should be happening, and it's not happening. Probably because there's no liquidity for it to happen, right? Just like I kept saying, where are we going to get the liquidity to go to 150K? Maybe if we just incrementally get higher because everyone's, they get their little bit of stimmy check and, they got their job, they're working their job and they're putting a little, they're buying sats, they're saving sats here and there. Okay, over the course of a year or two, maybe you could incrementally get to some higher level. But at the moment, where's the smash liquidity? I don't see it. So but hey, again, we're looking at potential for macro crash and intervention. Maybe it's just a mini crash and a mini intervention. That could do it too. I don't know. They'll probably give everyone $5,000, like Trump talked about. Cool, I guess. So with that, I don't feel like looking at the privacy coins. They're not relevant. They're all, look at this. This is just shit after shit. They're crashing. Fearo's down. Xano is like crashing. Darrow is just, if there's never been a more lull chart, I don't know what is. Zcrash continues to perform as you would expect a 20% dev tax coin to perform. Whatever. So fuck those fake ass privacy coins. Well, maybe not Fearo. Take that with a grain of salt. Okay, Monero transactions. Let's take a look at this. We're still hanging out around 28K, 30K. Let's go to a little bit longer time frame here. So you can see, we're kind of setting higher lows on these transaction counts. I'm not seeing necessarily bigger, higher highs, but that's fine. Like higher lows is kind of the name of the game that Monero has been playing. It's interesting how that's a little bit similar to the price chart. Let's go to the mining, the hash rate per day. Let's see what's going on there. I actually haven't looked at this at all this week. Looks like we're taking a little bit of a tumble here. Hey, what the hell? Come on. I don't know. It doesn't want to play nice with me. Whatever. So kind of hanging out here. Looks like things might have flattened off here at 4 gigas, but that's fine. 4 gigas is pretty good. It's better than what we had before. Hash rate is basically looks steady. I'd be curious if we do get a macro crash, does this hash rate stay steady? That would be like a really positive sign if hash rate doesn't fall with price, if there's a big crash coming here. So I don't think that there's, maybe there's a couple more macro fucking things to look at. Oh, we didn't look at bonds. Obviously, we have to look at bonds. I know that's the most exciting part of the day. Everyone wants to hear about bonds. So bonds didn't actually do anything. Like bonds are, so they're making their way down. This is kind of the beginning of what you might see, but it's really like nothing has happened here with bonds that are concerning, which I think is interesting, right? Because that's one of the big signs we've been talking about. We're waiting for bonds to start like violently, at least like probably violently moving to the downside, or I should say the rates moving violently to the downside. That hasn't happened here. But we are just looking for violence in general, right? Violent moves, volatility in the bond market. We're looking for that. And that like actually has not been forthcoming. So that would be a bit of a counterpoint to the incipient macro crash. You would expect there to be more volatility here. So perhaps we are a little bit early, right? We were looking at that breakdown in oil. That did precede the macro crash by like somewhere between 2 to 5 weeks. When oil like first broke down out of its trend and then continued breaking down, back in 2020. So maybe we are still a little bit early. Perhaps we are 2 to 4 weeks early here, but it's time to start paying attention to that 100%. Unless things just reverse on a dime next week, that's going to continue to indicate breakdown if things don't improve in those regards. There was also, it looks like the GDP took a big tumble, right? So GDP, and they always revise these numbers. So maybe this data point here changes. But the GDP as of January 1st, 2025 looks like it went negative. That's like massively negative, by the way, guys. That's minus 2.4%. So that's also another like big headline concerning thing that would again support macro crash thesis. And we had some unemployment numbers come out on Friday. Again, as we've talked about, the SON rule has already triggered, but it triggered from being down here at 3.4% unemployment rate, which is historically extremely low. Like we almost have never been there except for 1968. Wow, holy crap! If you go back in the 50s, they just couldn't find enough workers. I guess because so many people had fought and died in World War II. So anyways, the point is that historically we haven't seen these numbers, 3.4% unemployment since back in the late 60s, early 70s. Anyways, so unemployment has spiked up. Technically, that would trigger the SOM rule, which again means that it's a foregone conclusion that there will be a macro crash. The question is just when. The latest numbers we had did tick up. That doesn't really say anything for us here. Any more tick up beyond this, any more spike, like let's suppose we get the numbers in April and the macro crash has not arrived yet. If this number spikes up in April, like above this level, that's like foregone conclusion that yes, macro crash is imminent. But right now, that doesn't actually give us much actionable contribution to our picture here. So that's fine. Don't worry about that. And I think that's about it. Let me make sure I've at least checked the comments here because I don't think I have checked the comments. We have MI6. I appreciate the Brits coming here to sing out. I don't know, Tux, if you want to put that comment on.
Which one?
I don't know. Maybe it was already covered. No, maybe I'm hallucinating a super chat here.
Yeah, I don't see any in the comments.
You know what? I think that comment was made before the show. If you look at the time on it. So that's why
I can't see the
time.
Oh,
you're looking at XMR chat itself.
Yeah, if you look on the XMR chat.
Yeah, that must have been before because I don't see the.
Yeah.
See it on the
what did he say though? We could address it. It was kind of funny.
The MI6, our lovely Brits across the pond said, word on the grapevine whispers that more pedos than usual could be turning into today's show to evaluate the coin's overall efficacy. Keep that in mind. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's probably referring to the OPSED FUD that's out there. Obviously, I mean, it's not FUD in that it's real. It's FUD in that kind of this. What's being said is that the Monero community has been ignoring this and like trying to hide the fact that there's this weakness when that's obviously not the case. I mean, on this show, we talk about it all the time, just the weaknesses of ring signatures in general. And specifically, we've had Rucknium. We've had Rucknium on the show twice. He presented at MoneroTopia twice, virtually. I had him on, I think, recently after the last MoneroTopia. So all this has been very much discussed for years, for like 4 years. But I think that's what he's referring to. And obviously, short answer is it's all, fingers crossed, going to be a moot concern, given that full chain membership proofs will hopefully be implemented within the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty important given the data that Rucknium has found. There's some other comments here on the YouTube where
we could have Rucknium on again. We've talked about we should try to do that since that seems to be a hot topic right now, the OPSED stuff.
Yeah, it probably really is important to get him on so that we have a solid contextualization for what his research actually says. Because even I'm not totally confident. I mean, overall, yeah, like ring sizes apparently have been. It's not that I shouldn't say anything because I don't actually know, so I'll just shut up. But yeah, I would like to hear what he has to say to contextualize his findings for us. We do have some YouTube comments. So UTXO points out that yes, so XMR divided by US BTC times 1,000. No, that was incorrect. 2,560 Monero does not buy a single Bitcoin. It's more like 400. Sorry, I would need.
I hope that wasn't a premonition body. Jesus Christ, you scared me with that one.
Yeah. I don't know.
No. We're going the other direction. We're going so I think we get to the point where 100 Monero gets you a Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? Like, honestly, guys, I think it would be a mistake to be like excessively optimistic about any particular timeline where Monero like outshines Bitcoin. We just don't know. There's a lot of like, if there's a liquidity expansion that's going into Bitcoin, they're not putting it into Monero. So that's, like we could see like this chart might not like become the most amazing chart yet. Eventually there's going to be probably bigger movements into Monero. There's going to be higher visibility. Maybe there's some like big court case, like where it says, hey, Monero is allowable, or maybe there's some big announcement and people continue to see the reason for why you need privacy. I mean, in my mind, Monero is growing like lava, right? We're just slowly, steadily making progressive movements. You can't stop us. Too many people love Monero. Too many people keep getting into it. But lava doesn't necessarily if the volcano explodes, you got the pyroclastic flow is just going to freeze everything in its path, blast everything in its path. But otherwise, lava just, slowly eats everything. So I think we got to play the long game, and I don't want to tell people to get like extremely ridiculously bullish on the relative Monero Bitcoin price when I'm not confident that we should be. So that's all. I hate to be, a Debbie Downer over here.
But at one point there will be that explosion, right? Like you said, the lava flows. But I don't know. I think that's a pretty accurate analogy. I do think at some point there's going to be a moment where Monero catches fire. I don't think we've seen that yet.
There very well could be. There could be.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have like a solid. There's nothing in the immediate horizon that I can see that would be like, yeah, that's going to be the thing. So I wouldn't discount the possibility.
Listen, I love things the way they are. It's a nice environment to live in. You just go all in on Monero, live off Monero, and then try to earn Monero. And no better time to do it than now, when the price is reasonable, right? Like when you look at it big picture, it definitely seems like Monero should be worth more relative to other cryptos, given the organic adoption that's happened. So great time to stack Monero, earn Monero, and grow with the network. I see it as a great opportunity. I get a little uneasy when like the prices start to go up, like really start to like rocket up, or like I feel more comfortable when Monero's. I like the bear markets better. I know it might sound crazy, but I feel like I'm emotionally happier during the bear markets, head down, working on Monero-related businesses, trying to grow adoption and earning Monero, knowing that it's going to continue to go up big picture over time. I know. I mean,
personally,
like
I don't want to see
cope,
price
but
spikes.
that's like my personal take on things. Actually, now I do enjoy, like, don't get me wrong, when you start to see it, go up, it's hard not to be excited about it. But then it's like you got to think, all right, like, well, now what am I? If now it forces you to stop thinking of it like as money, right? And you're like, okay, wait, do I got to worry about like moving this now and try to like, right? And obviously that's what you were talking about with just making big trades, right? That's one way to do it. You don't have to obsessively watch the markets, but just wait for a big moment and just make one or two big moves. But even that's stressful. I like to just build and stack.
Yeah, I mean, it's better. You're actually in the real economy. You're actually selling things for Monero, and you just expressed the reason why we don't actually want to see massive price volatility, because your unease there is a direct result of knowing like, okay, well, now Monero spikes. Now I'm taking in Monero for things, and is it going to crash? Am I going to sell my products for a very high price Monero and then have to wait a year or two for that price to return to the current level? I would it's much healthier. It's better for everybody involved, for merchants. It's better for people. It's better for the Monero chart itself and for the price itself to make slow, steady gains, right? You go up, nice, gentle movements toward the upside, little bit of wicks here and there that come back down, and then more gentle upside movement. There's a reason that the Cabal manages the NASDAQ and S&P prices in that kind of fashion. They give you nice little steady gains so that you generally feel good about it. And it's generally more stable, right? It's better stability, and that spells more real world usefulness as a currency for Monero. We have a comment here from Nico Magno on the YouTube comments. He's asking about M2 money supply and the global liquidity increasing. So we're looking right here in green is the U.S. liquidity, and then in white we're looking at the global liquidity, and it hasn't really increased that much. It's just slightly. But overall, U.S. liquidity, like the liquidity picture, has been flat. So this encompasses both reverse repos and M2 money supply and the Federal Reserve balance sheet. So all three of those are wrapped up into this. We could wrap the treasuries into that. Or sorry, not treasuries. The U.S. Treasury. What the hell is it called? U.S. Treasury balance sheet. We could wrap that into this equation. I sometimes enjoy doing that. I sometimes don't enjoy doing that. In this case, if we were to include the U.S. Treasury balance sheet in this calculation, it looks like it's slightly lower here. But overall, this has been pretty flat. The global liquidity and the U.S. liquidity have both been pretty flat. Although, if we go and take a look at the macro situation, here's the M2 money supply. So the M2 money supply has indeed been going up, but the Federal Reserve has also been selling off its balance sheet. So that effectively has kind of neutralized the M2 money supply moving towards the upside. Federal Reserve have been selling their balance sheet, and I think that balance sheet, what they're selling, is primarily the mortgage-backed securities that they acquired in 2008. They have to do it extremely slowly so that they don't totally crush the market, but it does have the effect of withdrawing liquidity from the markets. So that's kind of like a balancing act they're doing. They really can't do it in the long term because overall it's a deflationary component in the market because money is being destroyed there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, yeah, so M2 money supply has been rising, but overall, the overall liquidity situation is flat, and when you account everything together. So that should be the answer there for you, Mr. Magno.
All right. I don't know. Pretty crazy to think that the price of Bitcoin could go down to where you're saying 40,000.
Yeah,
that's
40.
Pretty wild, man. That'd be awesome. I would be like, wow, this is great. I do have, in the bull market, any cash that I am making on the, out in the fiat world, I'm not throwing into crypto, right? Just waiting for the next bear. So that would be an interesting opportunity. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it just seems too good to be true, type of thing. It just seems too aligned with the market. Like the markets obviously, right, always do what we collectively least expect them to do, right? Or not always, but at instances. So I feel like to put more people in pain would be if Bitcoin just kind of like never really, kind of fake out and just takes off. It does feel like it could be one of those moments.
I still don't see where the liquidity is going to come from. The hardest thing I can't imagine is where is that liquidity coming from? I just can't see it. Like we've got.
Well, I mean, we have nation states like that are saying they're going to hodl their Bitcoin. So
but they're not buying Bitcoin.
They're not buying. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah, but that's just scare. That's adding to scarcity, and it's that's got to be priced in, knowing that there's going to be less Bitcoin.
I think that's already priced in. If I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, but is it priced in that? Is it priced in that Germany is going to announce the same thing? That Russia is going to announce the same thing? That I mean,
but like, I did find it interesting. I think, Body, you brought up a really good point. Comparing to previous crashes, is that this event, like, there was so much, there's so much excitement around this event, like to the lead up of it, of the creation of the strategic reserve, and now that it happened, it's like, oh, that's it. And it wasn't to the degree that people wanted, and it was funny watching it sell off. Like there was a little bit of a dump happening as that meeting was going on, and I think it's possible that its institutions are front running the retail who was like trying to buy up, thinking that it was going to pump. Because there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's going to be over 100K. There's going to be some." It's like, no, none of that happened. But
yeah, I think you're right there, Tux. Like,
and don't forget they. Oh, go ahead, Body. Finish your
point. So I think that when it was clear Trump was, when Trump won the election, I mean, they had talked about it. Both him and RFK were like strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? We're Bitcoin president. I think a lot of that got priced in, right? That was the pump. That was the movement to the upside here, and it's kind of like a sell the news event potentially. And for the past couple months, we've seen the social fabric of crypto give us these kind of like top signals. Like I've seen all this stuff in the news and I'm like, God, this feels so toppy. It feels so, like in the social sense, it just feels like this, it's just something didn't feel right there, but you can't really trade on that necessarily. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, listen, I'd love to see that. That would be my most fun route. Like that's the route I'd like us to go on. But that's why I feel like it won't happen. And, it'd be great. Saylor now starting to, announces that he had to sell Bitcoin or something as it goes down, a perfect storm. That'd be great. It'd be nice to have one of those moments. But Trump administration is full speed ahead, right? They came out, they announced this, they're moving forward with it. They did announce in that executive order that they're going to do do an auditing of all the crypto they have. Once they have that audited, they're going to make moves with that crypto. There was, I think we have it in the news. The crypto czar basically said in a recent interview that he would consider selling Ethereum for Bitcoin, right? So things like that are going to be having an effect on the market. And they did say they are, while they're not using taxpayer dollars to obtain Bitcoin for the reserve, that they're looking into other means of obtaining more Bitcoin without spending tax dollars directly, right? So that could be things like announcing that you can now pay your taxes in Bitcoin, right? Now they're acquiring Bitcoin. That would be bullish. Like we were saying,
pay your capital gains taxes in Bitcoin.
Pay your capital gains taxes in Bitcoin. Yeah. Pay your income taxes in Bitcoin on the federal level, right? So now they have more Bitcoin coming in. They're not using taxpayer dollars to obtain it. So things like that, I think,
It doesn't bother
soon.
you.
I don't think it's that pie in the sky. I don't think it's going to be like, oh no, that's never going to. I think we're going to start to see announcements like this.
It doesn't bother you that before they made some kind of deal, the art of the deal, to either reduce or eliminate certain income taxes, or to eliminate the capital gains tax, that they put the tariffs in place before that. So now, even if they get rid of the income tax later, eliminate the IRS, gut the IRS, they still are double dipping. They're still double collecting. Now there's tariffs and there's income taxes. And we have to hope that in the future that the Trump administration actually does do something about income or capital gains or whatever. Doesn't that bother you a little bit?
Yeah, it does. I'm just stating what's going on, right? Well, not what I want not what I want things ideally to be, but how I think things playing out, right? And so I think, I don't know. I see a potential. That's where I see as being a potential pump scenario for Bitcoin and crypto. I do think because of this other strategic reserve, if they start talking about these other cryptos, that they're also going to be holding. And then, like I said, other nation states starting to say the same things too. I mean, I don't know how that's not uber bullish in terms of more capital going into crypto.
That could be long-term bullish. I wouldn't disagree that there's a long-term bullish component there. But that kind of thing is going to take years to play out, right? So, is that the thing that's going to support Bitcoin to sustainable 200, 300K prices, 500,000 plus? Yeah, sure. Over the course of years. But that doesn't necessarily mean that has to be bullish immediately. In fact, it doesn't sound like any of these guys are actually purchasing Bitcoin immediately. At best, it's the removal of a potential negative. But the removal of that negative might already be, as Tuck said, that might already be accounted into the price just on the basis of the Bitcoin president having been elected, and price movement from November until now.
Neil has tipped $1.23, paying taxes in Bitcoin, yet another attempt at KYCing transparent blockchain wallet owners. Yeah, there you go. Right. So it's a win-win for them. So I could see I could see that being announced. I wasn't even really considering that, but yeah, that's just all the more reason why they might want to do that. What do you think the reaction would be in the market if it were announced no capital gains on crypto transactions?
Yeah, that's massively bullish. In fact, that's 200K almost overnight.
Would there be an initial sell-off though? Because now people are now selling. You may have OG Bitcoiners that are going to just sell into liquidity that have been holding. They're just sitting on 100 mil of Bitcoin. They're all right. Now I can just liquidate without capital gain, and they don't want to take the risk of that law changing with the next administration, and they're just
in the immediate sense they might sell some, but that would actually be mega bullish, because you're going to see a shitload of traditional finance move assets into crypto, saying, "Hey, we don't have any capital gains on this now." That's a leg up of 10 to 20%, maybe 25% in some cases, depending on how short. I think I don't know what the actual capital gains is. It's somewhere between 10 and 25%, depending on how long you've held the asset. But you would see massive movement from big finance all the way down to your mom and pop pleb that are like, wait, we don't have capital gains now on this particular asset. Yeah, that would be mega bullish. That would actually pump price very quickly. That would be the kind of catalyst that I'd be like, yeah, okay, 150, 200K incoming soon.
We need to get bit license eliminated in New York and capital gains on crypto eliminated in New York State. That would be amazing. But so, I mean, what do you see as the odds, Bonnie? I mean, do you just think that's like complete pie in the sky? Trump administration will never give that to us?
I don't know, like 2%, 1%,
Okay.
0%. Like,
it'd be fucking crazy. It'd be fucking crazy if they did. Oh my
we
God.
want to talk about something that's too good to be true. Like, that's definitely something that seems too good to be true. That effectively makes it money. That effectively gives all crypto the power to be money. And then it also opens up this, well, how do you define crypto and what is a crypto? And can you like finagle an ETF that represents the movement of a stock price? Can that be crypto now? That's technically a crypto ticker. So if I own an ETF that represents the movement of, I don't know, the NASDAQ index, I don't have to pay capital gains on that. It's such a, like, it's such a hairy issue. And I think probably it takes an act of Congress, and you know how that goes.
Yeah. And it could just be right that they would only apply it to what we say American-made cryptos, like whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
So
What is it?
I mean, it's definitely
There you go,
Trump coin
Trump
is
coin.
number one. You don't get more American
Solana,
than that, so.
maybe. Solana created in the U.S. I feel like, right? It's probably started. I mean,
That's
it's so
funny.
centralized; it could be controlled probably mostly from the U.S., right?
Yeah. Are most of the nodes run from the US? Maybe, probably.
Probably. Pretty sure it started in the United States, and the original nodes were in some data center in the U.S. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just in general in the whole political environment here, I am a passive watcher and a skeptic to the core. Like, I won't believe any of this shit until it actually happens, right? Until, like, I won't believe they're going to declare their Monero holdings until they actually do it. I won't believe they're going to release the Epstein files until they actually do it. What did they release so far? A heavily redacted list that just like gives up a few people, but not the actual people that we should really know about.